Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
In It Together, SC and the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Thank you so much for joining us. It is International Picnic Day this month, and we are talking about great ways that you can go outside, enjoy your family and friends, but also be conscientious about your health. Hey, don't forget, scrolling at the bottom of the screen throughout the show, you'll see some information about COVID testing, COVID vaccinations, also financial resources for COVID, including housing information, mortgage and rent, all those types of information that you will need. You'll also see, scrolling at the bottom of the screen, some financial resources as far as job offerings and school scholarships, all types of great information. So don't forget to post and share so we can get the message to the masses. As I said, In It Together, SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor. Hey, don't forget, we're streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow. Not only will you get notifications as to when we go live Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you'll also get all types of great information about like finding a diabetes prevention program, finding some resources and a support group that will help you make it through your or your family members' journey through diabetes. You can do this. You can conquer this. And the Diabetes Action Council and In It Together SC has the resources available to help you through. So don't forget to go over there and like and share and follow. We're also streaming live on their YouTube channel. So please go over there and hit the subscribe button. Now, the TailorMade production page on Facebook is the home of Coping with COVID and Coping with Tre Tailor. We're streaming live there too. So please go over there and hit like and share and follow. And don't forget that you can also get all types of great resources on our YouTube channel, which we would love for you to subscribe to. We've been on the air a little bit over 2 years now. So we've got almost 3 years of resources, information, interviews, and so much more to help you cope with COVID and cope with whatever you're dealing with in life. We also have a presence on Instagram and also on Twitter. In It Together, SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor, and today we're talking about picnics. It's International Picnic Day, and Veronica Aiken joins us. She is with Posh Creations and Events from Columbia, South Carolina. She does event planning and business coordination. Veronica, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great, girl. Getting ready to talk about picnics. Now, first of all, is picnic the correct name? Because I've heard people say that picnic, the word picnic, has sometimes a negative connotation. Are we still saying picnic for the culture?
You're saying picnic. We're saying picnic. We're saying grass gatherings.
Grass gathering.
Yeah, grass gatherings is another good one, but we're saying picnic.
Okay. So tell me first, how do you have a successful picnic? What do you need to have a successful picnic? I like grass gathering, girl.
we're gonna stick with grass gathering. As far as a successful picnic, it is really gonna be based on the type of picnic that you are wanting to have.
Okay.
The theme that you're going for. But as far as your basics, you want to make sure that you're gonna have covers, blankets, or whatever is comfortable for you to sit on, of course, right? You want to make sure that you have a fan. Sometimes it gets really hot. So portable fans are really good, as well as tents. And whatever else you feel like you want or you need to make yourself comfortable. Know the area that you're going to have your picnic in.
Oh, that's
so
good.
Then that can kind of determine the other necessities that you're going to need to bring. And then just bring yourself ready to have fun, enjoy the nature outside and relaxing. Bring a journal, a book, what have you, whatever it is that you want to make sure that your picnic is successful and a great experience for you.
Yeah, you mentioned bring a journal, bring a book, but I guess that's it depends on what you bring based on what your grass gathering is all about. Because if you want a relaxing time, of course, you bring a book or a journal. But if you're bringing kids, you may want to bring some balls and bats and stuff like that, right?
One thing that I love is games. So if you're going to do maybe like a mommy and me picnic with the kiddos, bring some fun games, bring a coloring book. I say bring Twister. You can put that out there on the
Yeah.
remember Twister? Put
Yes.
that out there on the grass, have some fun times. Even if you're gonna have maybe a small picnic table, why not bring some arts and crafts, small canvases for painting, different things like that. Or if you're gonna go more so towards the date night or just like a date, you want to bring some type of arts and craft. Maybe you can write a little letter to each other. Bring
Oh,
a
that's
mason jar, stick it in there, and take it out to read during a difficult time or just as a reminder, something of that nature. So, yeah.
You know what, Veronica? I love that. I think that is a great date night. And I love that idea of write a love letter, put it in a mason jar, give it to the other person. And then that's something you can read when you need either an uplift or you need to be reminded about the love that you do share.
Yeah, yeah. So you can even like if you are having a date night, you want to continue to do those things. One of the things that I enjoy is putting activities on a popsicle stick.
Oh,
Okay, challenge yourself each week, each month, however you want to schedule it. Pull something out of there that keeps your relationship going, something
mhm.
fun to do, right? Pull something out of there, come up with different ideas, whether it's going to be another picnic, movie night, different things like that. So just something fun, arts and crafty to do.
I love that. Veronica Aiken joins us. She's with Posh Creations and Events from Columbia, South Carolina. And we're talking about how you can have a successful grass gathering. That's what we're calling
That's
it
what we're calling
uh,
it.
because this month is International Picnic Day. Now, there are picnic grass gathering events. That's really become a thing. How do you find
Mhm.
out, Veronica, where the next grass gathering is? Is there a website or something?
So Eventbrite is going to be your main thing. You want to put in different tags. You want to put in different locations because so many people sponsor these. So if there's a particular grass gathering that's going to be, let's say, per se for individuals who are interested in book clubs or things like that, Eventbrite is going to be your best friend. Also, social media, Facebook and Instagram, of course, in the event tabs. You can set it based on your location, theme, date, time, different things like that. And you'll kind of see what's up in your area.
All
As
right.
far as for Columbia, Eventbrite and Facebook has been the most popular places to see those kind of things.
Right, because that, like I said, that is becoming a thing. People I know, I have a
Mhm.
girlfriend in Charlotte, and she finds everything to do. So I always see, that she's posting something where she is at some
Mhm.
type of outside event where
Mhm.
food and drinking and being merry. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, Veronica Aiken joins us from Posh Creations and Events in Columbia, South Carolina, and we are talking about International Picnic Day. What are the best foods and drinks for a picnic?
Cold foods, definitely. Foods that are easy to carry. So you want to pack something light, and something that's also not going to draw too many bugs.
Right.
So you may want your sandwiches, sliders, maybe some chips and dip. You definitely want to bring yourself some fresh fruit, just different things like that. Maybe even if you stop at your local deli or if you cook it at home, bring in maybe like some personal wings, different things like that. Stay away from hot food. Of course, with the sun being out, food getting spoiled, then you enter into that phase where you could potentially get sick. So I suggest brunch items. I love chicken and waffles on a picnic. That is my favorite, and definitely foods that you're not going to have to reheat.
So you're not going to have to heat the waffles?
Well, if you pre-make them right before your picnic, you pack them in a container. I would say add some strawberries and cream cheese on top of it, something to give you a little flavor for outside. And pair that with your favorite wings,
Mhm.
or maybe if you have some dip, something like that, along with your fresh fruit. And then as far as drinks, you want to make sure, of course, you're staying hydrated outside. So
Yeah.
please bring your water. But in addition to that, any type of punch, juice, different things like that is going to be great for a picnic.
Awesome. Awesome. Veronica Aiken joins us from Posh Creations and Events. We're talking about International Picnic Day. Now, when we're outside, of course, we're going to have to deal with the people that live outside, bugs and insects. How do we deal with bugs and insects, especially like you said, because they're going to be attracted to the food?
Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you're keeping your food covered. That's going to be the main thing. Also, portable fans to kind of keep flies and everything away. Before you go out or before you actually put your plate setting down, you can actually use repellent on the ground that kind of stop, the ants and things of that nature from crawling up. Of course, you're going to have to deal with it, but you want to avoid soggy and wet areas that draws those insects. And make sure that when you are positioning your picnic, you're checking for ant piles and different things like that.
Yeah.
You want to go to an area that's semi-clear of that. So staying away from those wet and soggy areas is going to be your best thing.
What about like the little tiki torches with the citronella and stuff like that? Is that something you would also suggest?
That's something that I would suggest. However, it is dependent upon the location. Certain parks have restrictions. So
Right.
you want to make sure that you know the area that you're having your picnic in, if that is something that is restricted. Because of course, then you do not want to get fined by those park rangers. So do your research before just going out and having your grass gathering.
What are some themed picnics that people can have? I mean, summer is a time for
Mhm.
holidays, and really we live in a climate where you can almost have a picnic year round.
Yeah, so you definitely, one of the main things that I'm seeing, like you said about your friend in Charlotte, is going to be like those bestie brunches, right? It's going to be those times where you come together with your girlfriends. So you want to do something fun and games. So that's going to be one of the main things. Another popular thing is, as well as the dates, is the couples dates or double dates.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that we've been seeing. So something fun as far as going into fall, right? One of the things that I'm seeing is people are preparing for that. So what they're doing is vision boards early on.
Oh, cool.
So that's fun. You have your arts and crafts out there. You just want to make sure that you are cleaning up your trash and area whenever you do have your grass gatherings for the sake of our nature. And then, of course, to be respectful.
Are there any picnic do's and don'ts that we need to be aware of, Veronica?
Picnic do's, definitely plan ahead and check your weather. Wear comfortable clothing and dress light. Make sure that you bring your hand sanitizer, wet wipes, and things like that. Make sure you bring some trash bags so that you can dispose of your items, because that's one of the don'ts. Do not leave the area messy, trashy, or things like that. Sunscreen. Please wear your sunscreen. If you are going to have pets outside, please make sure that you do keep your dogs on leashes for the respect of others.
Yeah.
And avoid heavy items. Avoid heavy items in regards of transport. So if you are going to be bringing like those arts and crafts and different things, looking to get in a wagon to be able to just transport it.
Right. Awesome. Those are some great tips for a grass gathering. And as we said, it is International Picnic Day this month, but I think any time is a good time to get together with family and friends, whether it's a small gathering or a large gathering, and just go outside and enjoy the weather, enjoy your family and friends, and just do something different and have a good time. Wouldn't you think so?
Yeah, of course. And one more thing to keep in mind, when you are having a picnic in a public location, make sure you check the park hours.
Yes.
Some parks, close at a certain time. And so I know like one of the parks downtown has a gate. And my girlfriend and I had a picnic, and we just got so caught up in talking, laughing. We got locked in. We got locked in. So we had to wait for one of the park rangers to actually come back and let us out. So make sure you pay attention to the park hours if you're going to be doing it in a public setting.
That's right, because your picnic may end up being a camping experience.
Yes. It'll be more than a grass gathering.
That's right. That's right. And now, Veronica, I know you do event planning and business coordination.
Yes.
Can you also help folks plan a grass gathering, whether it be large or small?
Yes, that is one of the things that I offer, and that is one of the main things actually of Posh Creations. Posh Creations was formed around grass gatherings.
Oh, wow.
So with every event, you of course get a theme. So you come up with your own theme. You come up with your own colors. You give me your vision. So your vision is my execution.
Oh, awesome.
So I encourage that. I really, really do. And so with each package, you can add on those arts and crafts. You can add on those dinner menu items or those drinks or what have you.
That would be great. That
Yes.
is great. Well, Veronica Aiken is with Posh Creations and Events. If you are thinking about having a grass gathering, whether it be big or small, she and her company are able and available to do
Yes.
just that. But whatever you do, wherever you go, just get together, like I said, with family and friends and have a good time this summer and fall. Thank you, Veronica, so much for joining us today. Thank you for giving us all of this great information about grass gatherings. And again, don't forget the park hours, because you could be like Veronica and her friend and get locked up in the park. Thank you, beautiful. We
Thank
appreciate
you so
you
much. Have a great day.
We'll be right back with more Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. I'm Tre Tailor.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Sawyer, an entrepreneur and caregiver. Part of taking care of your health is knowing if you're at risk of type 2 diabetes. Prediabetes is serious and puts you at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. Up to 90% of South Carolinians who have it don't know they have it. Visit inittogethersc.org. Take an online test to find out your risk and join a diabetes prevention program. This message brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of SC.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday life. But when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
Hi, I'm Master Deputy Addie Perez with the Richland County Sheriff's Department Community Action Team. As a mother, I know it's important to take care of my health for those I care about. Part of doing that is knowing my risk for developing type 2 diabetes. So if I was you, I'll take the opportunity to visit inittogethersc.org and take an online test to find out if you have prediabetes. Again, the website is inittogethersc.org. This message is brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina.
In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I want to say hi to Betty Fisher. She says hi to everyone. Also, Renee Nelson. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. Listen, if we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page. If you're watching, hello, we're so glad to have you. Don't forget to go over there and hit like, share, and follow and find out all of the great information and resources available on diabetes prevention programs and more on the In It Together Facebook page. They also have a website. Also, we're streaming live on the Tailor Made production page. That's the home of Coping with COVID. Please go over there. Again, hit like, follow, and share. So not only you can get notifications as to when you can watch Coping with COVID, which is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 2 p.m. And then first Monday with George Wallace. You can also get all of your COVID-related updates. We also are streaming live on YouTube. I want to say hi to all of you YouTubers. Thank you so much for joining us. And also we have a presence on Instagram and on Twitter. Listen, post and share this information out so we can get the message to the masses, because this is such an important conversation to have about PTSD. It's something that most people associate with veterans, those who served in the armed forces or went to war. But post-traumatic stress disorder can be found in anyone. All you have to do is experience some type of stress. And with many people experiencing the effects of COVID and so much more, people have developed the disorder. So we're talking today about alternative ways to deal with your PTSD. Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling and Reiki joins us today to discuss Reiki. Tina, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Trey. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. So great to see you too. Let's talk a little bit about what PTSD is.
Well, basically what it is when you're thinking about trauma, right? And a traumatic event it's very individualized. So it's really based on what you experience as trauma. So for some people, a traumatic experience can be something big, like you were talking about with veterans. It can be like, oh, I went to war. Trauma can also be, I had a fender bender. Right. And a lot of times we don't consider that. So there are a lot of things that are traumatic. If you've ever lost a child, that's a very traumatic experience while the child was in utero. Some people may say, but you were only pregnant for 2 weeks. It does not matter. It can be a traumatic experience. Things like infidelity. These are things that a lot of times are outside of the box that we don't really consider, the masses usually, as traumatic events. But how do you know you have PTSD? Basically, it's after the traumatic event is over, right? So we're talking months after the event is over. And then there's a stress that happens because of the traumatic event, right? So this typically means that we are having a hard time moving beyond that traumatic event. Our brain gets stuck in that space and we're no longer able to function the way that we used to. So what happens is our body our brain really still thinks we're still in that moment. We're still in that time frame when someone notified us that our loved one died. We're still in the time frame of when we got robbed. We're still in the time frame of when we had the really bad accident. All of these things are there. Our brain is telling our body, you're still there. So what happens? We stay like this, right? So we are in a state of, we relive the incident. So this is where we're thinking about it all the time, or we try to avoid thinking about it all the time because we're afraid of what happens and the feelings that come up when we do. Also, it's when we stay in a state of hyperarousal. So that means basically, this is a lot of times. So the 4th of July is coming up this weekend. And so when we think about veterans, a lot of times we'll say, oh, when the
fireworks. Yeah.
So that would be a hyperarousal symptom. So when they hear the fireworks, it's a trigger. And so right? All of a sudden, I'm really scared. I'm really nervous. But hyperarousal can look like lots of different things. It can mean I'm sweating profusely. It means I'm trembling. I'm scared. Somebody comes up and says, "Hey," and it's just really, really over the top, different reaction and response than what we normally would have. So, and it's got to be a combination of the 4 symptoms, right? So the reliving or re-experiencing the event, hyperarousal. So this is when we have the physical changes that happen. And it's the change in our mood and how we feel. And then also it's going to be the avoidance. So this is when we try to avoid thoughts, feelings, or any sort of reminders of the trauma, right? So what can be a trigger? It can be anything. It can be a cologne or a perfume. When I was working with sexual assault survivors, a lot of times if they smelled certain things, it doesn't even have to be like a person scent. It can be an air freshener sometimes that can trigger a memory of when
Yeah.
So that can be, you get brought into a state of hyperarousal. And then a lot of times what happens is that will trigger a shift in our mood and also our emotions. And we start reliving the trauma. And then a lot of times what we'll try to do to cover that up is avoid. So that's how that cycle of all 4 of those things kind of comes into play. The issue is traumatic things happen. Every single human being is going to experience traumatic events at some point in their life, if not several. Right? Most of them do. But the PTSD actually happens. It's when our brain is stuck in that space, and we're talking months later, 6 months later, we still are stuck in that space. We have not been able to move beyond it. So we're still having the sleeping issues. We're still having the avoidance and the mood and emotion issues. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. I was reading something today, doing studies, about for the show, and I read something that says it's not so much that you can't get over something; it's that something can't get over you. Mm-hmm. It's not that you can't release the stress; the stress won't release you. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was so interesting. I want to thank everyone for for watching Wellness Wednesday. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. We're talking to Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling and Reiki, and we're talking about PTSD and alternative forms of treatment. Gary Hunter, thanks for watching. He says, great show. Keep up the good news coming from the informative information coming. Matthias Copeland says, my uncle is triggered by fireworks. And he said it's a lot for vets. Yeah. And then Joel Davis says that he has it. Joel, if you would like to share the origin of your PTSD, we would love to hear from you if you want to do that. And the Mickey Copeland says the smell of sulfur when you were talking about different things that bring it up. Now, I also read, Tina, that a lot of times in women, that the number one cause for PTSD in women is sexual assault.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, for women, 1 in 3 women have been sexually assaulted. And a lot of times that's before the age of 18. They've had that experience. So when you're thinking about, molestation, or even if it's another kind of scary experience surrounding sex. And then later on in life, there are lots of other sexual experiences that people have that are very traumatic. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't have to be like a stranger assault.
Right.
We think it's going to be the scary guy around the corner. It can be, I really wasn't into having sex and I felt pressured into doing it by my partner who I choose. Wow. And that can be a traumatic event for someone. It does typically happen a lot for women, and then also for, especially in the African American and the Black community, we experience sexual assault at twice the amount of women. And then Black children in foster care tend to experience sexual assault 10 times more.
Oh my goodness.
So it is very prevalent in our community, especially. And yes, women tend to have PTSD a lot more. A lot of times, because when you think about how men tend to channel their feelings and experience, it is outward, right? So they're able to release some things externally, a lot of times through anger, but sometimes it's also through, they implode, right? But most of the time with women, we will stuff and we keep stuffing and we don't really deal with things the way that we probably need to. And we don't address our needs and concerns because in our society, we have kind of been taught and reared usually that someone else's needs are more important than our own.
Yeah. You know what else in the Black community? You don't tell your business.
That's right.
You keep it to yourself,
Well, and if we're honest, a lot of times we've had to do that because we are more likely to talk about so-and-so being this, that, and the third, but we will protect Uncle so-and-so who's a perv.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that at the family meeting, but we'll talk about what you doing that's wrong. But a lot of times we will brush things under the rug. We have tended to do that in our family system. We are seeing some shift in that. So yay us. We are seeing some shift where we are starting to talk about things. We are starting to access services more and be able to acknowledge the fact that you can't change what you don't acknowledge.
Right. Exactly.
So we are definitely seeing where we are doing a lot of a greater service to our families and to our children and to each other by saying, sis, you need some help. And also by calling things out, because it does happen a lot in our communities and our families, in our businesses, and also in our religious sectors. And a lot of times it's just we don't talk about it. We keep it on the hush. But I'm here to say it loud.
Yeah. and often we're talking to Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling and Reiki, and we've been talking about PTSD. Michelle Harris says, what kind of physical complications can PTSD cause on the body, especially if you have a chronic condition? Thank you, Michelle, for your question.
So a lot of times what we see with PTSD, a lot of my clients, so I'm a therapist and I'm also a Reiki practitioner. So what I see a lot of times with clients, we're seeing things like fibromyalgia, Also, depression a lot of times causes us to have issues with anxiety. So then we're seeing like racing heart. Some studies have shown that even sometimes cancer can be one of the things that develops as a result of unresolved trauma, as well as issues with breathing.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the things that happens is when we stay in a state of hyperarousal, when you think about the first thing you do when you're scared,
Yeah.
and a lot of times we stay there. So a lot of times we're not breathing, and you think about what breathing does for the body in regard to our circulation, in regard to our oxygen levels, and even our brain functioning. So trauma can really affect the body in a lot of ways. And, depression can cause us. So depression is a symptom of PTSD. And so when you think about depression, a lot of times it causes us to have pain in our joints, fatigue, all of those sorts of things. So there are lots of different ways that trauma can show up in the body. Even when you think about things like diabetes and also hypertension, again, these are issues that have to do with our blood and things of that nature. So absolutely, it can have an adverse reaction on our physical bodies for sure.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are talking to Tina Phillips. She is with No Shame Counseling and Reiki, and we've been talking about PTSD and alternative forms of treatment. End It Together, SC, and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Joel Davis says that it affects him. He hates being around a large crowd of people, and he has to stay in a lot. Thank you, Joel, so much for your comment. I wanted to ask you, Joel, why are you experiencing PTSD? Are you a veteran, or did you have some type of a trauma early on? So listen, let's talk a little bit because you are a counselor and a Reiki practitioner. Me and this hair, as I'm killing. Listen, I do want to shout out everybody who's saying they love seeing my hair. But this is exactly why you always see a head wrap. So listen, why is Reiki a good form of treatment for PTSD?
Well, Reiki can be a great form of intervention for any type of health, emotional, and also spiritual issue that you may be facing. And so basically what Reiki does just off the bat, right? It's going to, it promotes lots of relaxation. So here at the No Shame office, what we do is we have the Reiki room there's soft music playing. There's aromatherapy that's happening. It's low lighting. And so you get up on the bed. And so a lot of times just off the cuff, you are in a state of relaxation, right? That's a warm eye pillow that's on her eyes. And it's amazing. So that's one of the benefits. But another one of the benefits, when you think about the 7 chakra zones that we have down our bodies, right? So what happens with trauma, what it basically means is that we are afraid that we are going to get seriously hurt or that we're going to die, or we've been informed that someone we love and know has been seriously hurt or that they are going to die. That's what trauma looks like. So what it does, it disturbs our sense of safety. It disturbs our ability to trust in ourselves, that we can keep ourselves safe, that we are worth. It impacts our self-worth, our self-esteem, all of those sorts of things.
Wow.
When you get on the Reiki table, one of the chakra zones is down in your stomach, which is your sacral and also your solar plexus and even your root. And so that's where our safety centers are held. So if there is a blockage because of a traumatic event that happens in one of those chakra zones, you are not flowing as we are created to. We're not flowing well. So what Reiki can do is come in and help those chakra zones to begin flowing properly. And it's an energy healing. So it can help those chakra zones to begin flowing properly or to begin flowing at the rate of speed that is a more comfortable rate of speed, because sometimes we see them where they're real sluggish, or sometimes they are like overactive, and they can also be flowing the opposite direction, right? So they're supposed to flow clockwise.
Right.
They can be going counterclockwise. So that's one of the ways that can help. And a lot of times what it does, we have the opportunity while we're there, because we kind of move out of our own way of ourself. And so it's a time for those things to come up, and for us to bring a new awareness to those things. And when we clear those different chakra and energy zones, it helps the flow of breathing, of air and oxygen. It also helps the flow of life. It's the life force flow to begin to move more, I'm so sorry. It helps the life force to begin to flow without blockages in our bodies. And so a lot of times what we're feeling is the relaxation for sure. But then a lot of people, when they get off the table, they say, oh, I feel so much lighter.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to let stuff go.
Well, you said a couple of things that I want to get some clarity on, Tina. You mentioned chakras. Tell us what that is. So listen, I know people are like, she cussing? What's she cussing? Where's that going on?
No, cousin. So, not today, not right now anyway.
Right. What is a chakra?
So we have different chakra zones in our body. This is what makes you you. And this is what keeps us thriving. So we have a chakra zone that's our crown. We have one that's our third eye. We have our throat, which this is what holds our creativity and also holds our truth, what we consider truth. So your heart is actually a chakra zone. And then also we have our, like I said, our sacral. This is where things like our willpower, our brain functioning, all those sorts of things are held there. We have our solar plexus. That's where our self-esteem and sense of safety is held. And then we also have our root. That's our identity. That's who you are. So those are your 7 main chakra zones. So again, these are the different points that make you you. And they're connected to your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual functioning.
Right. Joel Davis says it's 7 of them. So Joel, you must have done Reiki. I'd love to know what your experience has been. So you mentioned that Reiki is a Japanese form of healing, and it connects with, it has to do with energy. Talk a little bit more about that so people can understand exactly what you're doing when you're doing Reiki, how you're redistributing energy, so to speak.
Yeah, so that's absolutely what it is. So when you think about it, if you were to hold your hands like this, eventually what you will start to feel almost like a magnetic pull. It's because we all are energy. Everything is energy, right? And so that's science. That's just what science says. And we all vibrate at different frequencies. And so what happens is when they're on the table, there's an energy, each of our bodies, we have the ability actually to heal. That's a part of what our bodies are created to do. So when you're on the table, what my job is as the Reiki practitioner is to direct your energy to those different chakra zones, right? And those different places in your body. Because sometimes people come in and they'll say, oh, I have some pain in my knee. Okay, well, then we can also direct your energy there, that healing energy to that space so that you can experience the healing and the clearing in that area and in that space in your body. So there are a lot of people that have different questions, views, and sometimes even criticism about Reiki. But when you think about it, if you go to church, when you go up and you ask the pastor to pray for you, where does he put his hands? He or she, where do they put their hands? Or when people come and lay hands on you, it's typically here, which is your third eye. So this connects to spirit. So, and we say in church a lot of times from the crown of her head to the soles of her feet, right? So that's your crown chakra. Or sometimes they'll put their hand on your throat or your heart. Why do we do that? It's a point of contact because it's very similar. It's the same thing, very similar process. And so it's a point of contact, but there's something that's under there in your body. There's that energy place, that energy force in your body that needs to be healed. Right. This is an opportunity when you're on the table for that to happen. So there are some different forms, the hand placements that we utilize in Reiki when we are touching the body. Typically at my practice, because I do champion voice and choice, I touch the head and I touch the feet and ankles. I typically just hover my hands in the hand placement areas, though, right above the body. So I don't actually touch between the neck and the lower half of the body. So that's kind of how that goes. I do have some clients who are okay with that. But like I said, it's very rare that we do that here at No Shame. But it is so there you go. See me touching ankles there in that place. A lot of times us being grounded, feeling grounded comes a lot in our feet. And so there are actually 12 chakra zones, and there are actually way more than that, but 7 main ones that we think about. And even if you think about things like the number, what 7 means, if you like a biblical standpoint, or even the number 12, what that number means. So again, there are a lot of great symbolism that really carry across religion. And Reiki is not connected to any specific religion. A lot of times people are like, what is that? And it isn't. So I have pastors who come in who have Reiki. I have people who are more so atheists that come in for Reiki. It's really about you living your best life and living as your highest self. And you deserve that.
Yeah. So as you said, now during the Reiki session, you are, as you said, you're kind of putting your hands in different places to redistribute energy. I know that you didn't do it there, but I know that you also use stones. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are different stones that come from the earth. I don't put that many on someone's face, but we do have different stones that are meant for different things. So if you think about things like clear quartz, that helps to clear energy fields and also helps to promote clarity in thinking and in the mind. So we use that. We also use like selenite. Selenite is also a clearing stone. And so there are lots of amethyst. There are lots of different types of stones, citrine, and all of them have a different meaning. Very similar to when you go to CVS or any other drugstore, you don't get an Excedrin if you have a stomach ache. Right? Yeah. You get Excedrin for a headache. So it's very similar with the stones. So they each have a different meaning and we put them on. And it's very similar, again, to using what we consider regular medicine here.
Right.
It's very similar. And one thing I always share with people is if you're willing to trust a Tylenol, why would you not trust this stone that was created in the earth? There isn't any chemical that comes to it after that. That's what it was. We get it right out the earth and we put it there. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, great. There's no harm.
Right. In it together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Today, we are talking to Tina Phillips. She is with No Shame Counseling and Reiki. We're talking about Reiki as an alternative form to help folks with PTSD. Coming up in just a short, we're going to talk with someone who recently had a Reiki session. So we're going to find out from her what her experience was. But before we bring Michelle in after the break, I want to know, how has Reiki affected you? Because I'm sure you've had it too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had Reiki a few good times, actually. That's how I got into providing it as a service. So I've had a lot of major traumas that have occurred in my life and had some issues with not only PTSD, but also anxiety really severely. And so through a combination of spiritual work at my with my spiritual leader, pastor, and also therapy. I had EMDR therapy, which is eye movement desensitization therapy. And then also I was on medication. And then also Reiki, I've been able to really improve. I probably went from functioning at maybe 20% to now functioning at probably 90%. Yeah, I couldn't drive in the rain. I couldn't drive at night because my anxiety was so severe following a pretty severe car accident. And so that has been one of the things that was very, very instrumental in helping me to just feel more centered, feel more safe, secure. And also what it did, it brought up a lot of issues. Sometimes it might bring up a memory that I could go and process with my therapist that I may not have remembered before I got on the table. I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. And so that would be something I could utilize in my work with my therapist. So it has been a great help for me. I practice Reiki on myself. And so that is something you can do. I also am, since I'm a master Reiki therapist, I can teach Reiki. So I do have classes as well where I can teach others how to do Reiki. You can do it on your dog or yeah, that was one of the ways.
Well, I want to talk about that when we come back. And I also want to talk a little bit about how it helps people that do have chronic diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, stuff like that. We're going to come back with Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling, talk about that. And also Michelle Harris with DHEC and a Reiki patient is going to join us also to tell us about her experience. That and more coming up next as we continue our conversation about PTSD and alternative treatments. We're talking specifically about Reiki. In it together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Coping with COVID every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID.
The Comet gives me a reliable source of transportation.
It's very convenient to me, and they have wonderful drivers. It's clean and it builds community. It's fun to meet people.
It makes me feel like really independent. It's just fun.
It's always going to be there and it gets me everywhere I need to go.
We try to ride every single day. Comedy is our livelihood.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday life, but when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
In it together, SD and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Please go over to the In It Together Facebook page and hit like and follow and share this broadcast out so we can expand the conversation about PTSD and alternative forms of treatment, including Reiki. We've been talking about PTSD, and while the condition is typically associated with the military community, of the roughly 8 million people in the United States dealing with the post-traumatic stress disorder, less than half of those are actually veterans. Stress associated with the past, childhood, loss, trauma, and of course, with the twindemic of last year, many people are experiencing PTSD. Unfortunately, it often goes untreated. Many do turn to counseling, and more people are utilizing alternative forms of treatment like Reiki. We've been talking to practitioner Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling and Reiki. If you just joined us, please watch the replay for all of the great information about Reiki and PTSD that you may have missed. Michelle Harris joins us now. She's Communications and Resource Coordinator for the Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management and a Reiki patient. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Oh, I'm glad to be here and talk about it. And I think it should be added, I'm a new Reiki patient. This was my first session, my very first session. Yeah.
Well, tell me first, Michelle, how did you hear about Reiki?
Oh, I watched this fabulous show called Coping with COVID. So I had heard over the years, I've heard things about chakras and that sort of thing. I can't say that I definitely understood that all of that was connected to Reiki before. So I've heard that word here and there, but I didn't put the whole picture together. I have been the kind of person, though, who liked to listen to spa and very soothing music. I've heard about the singing bowls and things like that. And definitely I'm into aromatherapy and light therapy. I mean, I know that those things are real. So it's bits and pieces of things over the years. And all of this kind of put it all together in one package. Now I understand how things better interconnect.
Right. So that made you become interested in trying it?
It did. However, I will say that I was one of those people who was skeptical, not necessarily about the practice itself, but about practitioners. I was really concerned about, well, how do you know that you're really getting someone who is good at this, who can help you, who is effective? And so to be honest with you, and this is where Wellness Wednesday came in, through our connection with DHEC and supporting the show. And you, Tre, actually connected us with Tina, and just watching her on the show, listening to her talk, knowing that she was also a licensed therapist, because Tina said something earlier that I thought was great, which is if something comes up, you want to be able to deal with it.
Right.
Because we don't want to stuff that back down. We don't want to, in my opinion, eat my feelings back down and do different things like that, whatever we do to kind of cope. I didn't want to do that. So I was very happy to be in a safe space with someone who not only I felt like was very competent in the Reiki practice, but then if something did come to the surface, I could also deal with that with her as a therapist. I thought that was a great combination.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to, we don't want to unfold all of your Reiki business out here.
We ain't got time for all that.
but I do want to know, how was the experience?
It was fantastic. And I've had people ask me that. I had lots of folks with bated breath. Okay, Michelle, what did you think?
Really? All right. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because, listen, and I keep looking, I was like, what is Tre? I'm looking on the table. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's one of my things I got to unpack.
Well, nobody knew that was you, Michelle, until you just said it.
Listen, who could tell that was me besides? Anyway, whatever. But because I have had massages before and things like that, spa therapy, spa experiences, I was very comfortable in the setting because it is very much like that. The light is very low, candles and soothing music and that sort of thing. So all of that felt very familiar. And it was a silent experience in the sense that, Tina was not talking with me. She would ask me if she needed me to do something like put up, lift my head or something like that. But other than that, we didn't talk. One of the things that I thought was very interesting is, and this will come as a shock to anyone who knows me, I like to talk a lot. And so being in a silent space, being in just with my thoughts going back and forth, that was a little different. That's not something that we do in this society very much. We have a lot of things that fill the void. So it was wonderful to just be there. I'll tell you, as we moved through the session, because it was about 40 minutes from beginning to end, we chatted a little bit beforehand, but very little. Really, we spoke afterwards. But the session itself was about 40 minutes. And there were times, and Tina said that this was one of the first times that someone had said this, there were times that it felt like it was moving fast. Then there were times that it just felt like the minutes slowed down. And in our microwave society where things are going, constantly, to have a moment expand like that was tremendous. I thought that it was a great experience.
Yeah. What were you looking to get out of it?
So I was looking to find some balance. So because I cope with anxiety, I have a lot of stress. So mine is more in the form of stress, just because I have so many demands and so many things I'm trying to do, and I'm pulled in so many different directions. So I was hoping to have a quiet moment that gave me some balance. I'm aware of the fact that I bring energy to a space, like we all do. I think if people can think about, there are some people that'll walk in a room and they'll change the whole tone of that room because they're bringing all kinds of different energies. Whether it's good or bad. So I'm aware that I have energy in a space, but I always feel like it's all over the place. So I was looking to be able to find something that would center it a bit more. What I found was that, and this is something I'll share with Tina, a lasting effect of I slept better afterwards.
Wow.
Because I get into bed, whether I sleep or not. I have, I'm at that age where my sleep is already affected by menopause and everything else. So I slept better, and I have felt more grounded as opposed to just having fleeting thoughts all the time. Wow. I have felt more grounded.
Wow. Is that a normal reaction, Tina? Is that what she was supposed to feel?
Well, it's never about what someone's supposed to feel.
Right.
But yes, most people do report that they have much better sleep, that they have a stronger sense of self, that they feel more grounded. And then also we see actually one of the their eating habits even change, hydration, all of those sorts of things tend to improve following Reiki. Yep. And Reiki, it works or it can be continuing to move throughout your body for 21 days. So you can't come in every week. That's really not the way that the practice was set up. You're supposed to come in about every 21 days, so about every 3 weeks. So, and I do have some patients that come every 3 weeks to the date. I have some who come once a year. I have some who just come once a month. So it's really kind of up to you. But yes, most of my clients, I could pull up all kind of emails that I get a couple of days after where they're like, oh my gosh, or some people are like, I've been like really happy and laughing a lot. Sometimes I get some people who are saying, I feel all the grief that's come back up that I did not feel, when my mother passed away and I didn't grieve her. And now I'm grieving now. But
because it's coming up and coming out.
But it's a cleansing. It's a cleansing time and they needed to get it out. So lots of different, but a lot of times people do say they feel so much more grounded. Definitely they feel that difference in their rest. And then also a lot of stress reduction.
Yeah. I want to talk about, because you talked about stress reduction, and stress is often the main reason people are having high blood pressure, even diabetes, heart disease. So how can this really physically affect someone who has some of these chronic health conditions doing Reiki?
Well, of course, first and foremost, definitely is going to be that stress reduction, right? And just feeling that balance in general. I believe that everything that happens with us physically, a lot of times is a manifestation of things that are happening emotionally and as well as spiritually. They're things that we are storing internally. And I think that a lot of times they manifest physically. So when you're thinking about diabetes, which I'm a former diabetic, no more. But one of the things that you have to look at is a lot of times people end up with things like neuropathy, which when you think about that numbness or that tingling, all sorts of things. So Reiki can absolutely help to benefit those areas. And also, again, when you're looking at the stress reduction, that's also a great way to, and I talked earlier about like hydration and also eating habits. A lot of times we think we're hungry and we're not. We are feeling something internally, right? We're stuffing our feelings, or a lot of times we're hungry for something else that we are not willing or able to give ourselves.
Wow.
So it's a drive. Sometimes it's success. Sometimes it's relationship. We're too afraid. So to feed something in ourselves, we'll use food instead. Right.
Wow.
So food is our cocaine or our heroin or our marijuana. It becomes our drug.
Yeah.
So all of those things can be impacted by Reiki. So of course, we do see that was another benefit of Reiki for myself was definitely, like I said, I'm no longer diabetic.
Do you credit it? Do you credit Reiki?
I credit Reiki. I credit a shift in, again, dealing with my trauma. And so when I dealt with the trauma, I was able to get up and walk 2 to 3 miles every day. I was able to eat the way that I needed to eat. That was best for my body. And also start giving myself what I needed. A lot of times we are not even in tune with what we need or what we want. Because what trauma does also, it disconnects our brain from our bodies.
Right.
And so sometimes we don't even know what it is. This is when you start asking people, what do you want to eat? I don't know.
Right.
It's not always just, sometimes it's just literally, I don't know. Or sometimes it's, I'm afraid that if I say what I want, it's not what you want. And there's going to be a rejection process. There's so much that goes into everyday decisions that we make or don't make and what we're willing to give ourselves or not give ourselves. Right. And so a lot of us have this shame, which is why my company is called No Shame. We have this shame mindset, not necessarily that I've done something bad, but I am bad. I am flawed. I am not worthy. And so we treat ourselves accordingly. So a lot of times, emotional things that happen, we do see that physical ailments tend to decrease, or we are able to cope with them better. We are able to follow the directions of the medical world because I'm worth it. I want to live.
Yeah.
I'm living and not just live here. I can live.
Yeah.
I can
Live my
here.
best life. Yeah.
And one of the things that I knew going into this trade, but even listening to Tina talk about it now, and you saw it even in me, in my discomfort at showing me, is as women, we are immediately, if critical of ourselves. We'll that mirror, we look in the mirror, oh, my face doesn't look like, oh, my hair's not, oh, my body is not, and it's so automatic until if we were to try to add up all of the negative things that we say to ourselves, forget what somebody else said. But if we were to, thank you for helping me deal with that, Trey. Listen,
that's why I thought I was playing.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. But no, I have, and the thing about it is because it's so automatic, my thought process is, what can I do to reverse that? Because I'm glad that I know I'm recognizing now that it's there, those negative thoughts, but what can I do to reverse that? And so that's where I believe that the Reiki session was extremely helpful in, again, just centering, giving me some space to think about what I might need, and many times if you point out something that is missing or broken or whatever, it's just as Tina said, it's a shameful thing. Oh gosh, I'm missing that. Versus, oh, okay, I'm recognizing that I need that. Let me see how to get that.
Yeah.
Ask for it.
Yeah.
That's usually the big piece, is asking for it.
Well,
Because if I ask for something, it's an admission that I cannot get it for myself.
Right.
So a lot of times we begin thinking that we are weak or that we are inadequate. So again, it always taps right back into that shame factor, which is why I'm the kind lady. Be kind to yourself, because it's about honesty, but also about that compassionate care. And you have to have both for yourself. So I'm not going to be careful with what you say to yourself about yourself, right? Just like Michelle was talking about, we are our own worst critics. And if you look at what the tape is, the ticker tape that goes through our minds consistently, a lot of us would be like, oh my gosh, I talk to myself like that. Indeed you do.
Right. Because you wouldn't do that to somebody else.
You wouldn't.
Correct.
And most of the time that's why I say be kind to yourself. Now, if you watch, there's a really popular show that comes on and they say be kind to each other. And I don't say that because most of us were reared to talk nice, even if we're being fake. We're reared to be kind to other people, but we are not reared to be kind to ourselves. So we'll tell the neighbor, you look great, but tell ourselves, oh my gosh, you're so
yes.
All the things. Yeah.
You know what else I'm thinking that just it came to my mind? The other thing is we hear people say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but we don't do unto ourselves. Right. Which may be the root of some of the reasons why we hurt people. We know hurt people. So we're hurt. So we're in turn hurting, abusing, using other people. Because we're not alone like ourselves.
We get into that, but really, when you even look at it from like either like a one of the universal truths, right, is to also love your neighbor as yourself.
As yourself, yeah.
I can't love you if I don't love me.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it's a daily practice. And don't get me wrong, I missed the mark. Before we got on here, I was on and I was like, I don't like my eyebrows today. Right? So I was doing that. And somebody, who I love and trust had to get me on together. You look great, you look beautiful, and I'm gonna need you to talk different to yourself.
Right.
So and also that's what it's also about is when you start, when you make a commitment to you cannot always change the people around you. You can't change them.
You can't.
You can change who's around you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so you will start finding you will connect with people who vibrate higher, and they will hold you accountable to be your best self. When you say, this is the realm I'm living in, your crowd will change. Absolutely.
Wow.
And I was telling someone else, I just said to my daughter is 27, and I said to her the other day, I said, let me apologize for any trauma that I have caused you in raising you, because we not realizing it, we traumatize our poor children. And I think about the fact that many times, we were raised, that's just how we were raised. And at what point do we start dealing with the trauma? Because some of it is completely unintentional. Our parents love us; they cared for us. They, so, but
they were doing the best they could do at the time.
But at some point, I need to deal with that trauma, deal with those wounds. One of the things that Tina said to me afterwards was about dealing with some emotional stuff, like going through my divorce and stuff. And I was like, oh, I got to pull that back up. But I do need to look at that because I didn't fully deal with it. I just made do for the time when I was going through it. But you come back to it. The thing that keeps me from being afraid to deal with it is you come back to it at a stronger point. I'm not the same person I was when I got divorced. So now I can deal with some things better than I did back then.
Than you did before. Yeah. Yeah. In it together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. We're talking to Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling and Reiki, and also Michelle Harris, who is a patient of Tina's. She just had her first Reiki session today. So we're getting her all fresh and refreshed.
But it won't be my last. I will be back. I'm counting off my 21 days. Yes.
So Michelle, I want to ask you, who do you think should get Reiki?
Oh my gosh. I think it's open for anyone. I think everyone is a great candidate, but everyone is not open. So we talked briefly about reasons why Reiki wouldn't work. It's the same kind of reason why counseling wouldn't work. If somebody is not open, if they're so lost in disbelief, if they're so non-trusting that they can't open up, if they're not willing to release, then to me, you should at least try it. But if you go into it so closed, then you're not going to get what you could possibly get out of it. But I think that it's for any age. I just saw a story about children and stress and how much fear there is of catching COVID, the trauma that they've had of missing their classmates. So any age on up. But I definitely think, and I'm a lover of women as far as us, because we are so central to the family unit and so central to society that, and again, as Tina said before, we're the caregivers and we take care of ourselves last. So I definitely think that women, you need to think about doing this for yourself, even if you just have one session just to see if it would work for you. Because if it will work for you, it puts you on a very positive path. And don't be people who are church going, because I love my Jesus. Do not be afraid of this, because so many of the things are principles that go hand in hand with what we already believe.
And that's what, that's what you said, Tina. If you think about the laying on of the hands, the praying, all of that.
The meditation,
that's spiritually based.
Absolutely. Listen, I graduated from Oral Roberts University, and my daddy was a preacher, still is a preacher, but was a pastor for 36 years. I go to church most of the time here in Columbia, sometimes here in Columbia. So definitely am very much aware of, the different religious ideas. And also, I invite you, if you have questions or if you have concerns or you're nervous, I invite you to bring that in. Because I think that a lot of times what I have seen for a lot of people is where they've been able to say, oh, okay, this feels actually somewhat similar to some things I may have experienced on a spiritual level. But this time I get to be by myself, and have this sort of experience. So I invite you to come in and see what it's like. I invite you to come and ask questions for sure. And I always tell people to try to replace criticism with curiosity. And kind of see and ask your questions and find out what it is that's really nervous, what makes you nervous. A lot of times it's a loss of control.
Yeah. Tina, we have a question that I want to pose before we leave. Gary Hunter says, is it possible that some of us suffer not knowing it when we respond to certain things with our spouses? He says, when we have knowledge or understanding of the results of their behavior, therefore we lash out to stop it. He said a lot in there.
Yeah, that is. A lot of times, again, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So when I'm doing work with couples, even too, most of the time, one of the first recommendations that I have is that they go to individual counseling, right? And that they go to two separate counselors for that, not me. Because most of the time we need to come into our own awareness about our own traumatic history. Because trauma shows up everywhere in every area of our life. For a lot of people, it's sometimes trauma even shows up as a sexual dysfunction. So when we're looking at erectile dysfunction or also FASD for women, a lot of times that's a result of trauma. When you're thinking about how depression causes you to be moody and irritated, or if you're anxious, and think about it, if you're hyper aroused and you're already like this, yes, you're going to always feel like you're coming off as lashing out. One of the trainings that I provide, I have one called Boys in the Hood, and I also have one with my colleague Christian Jackson called Arrested Development, specifically talks about how trauma impacts Black women and also Black men, and how a lot of times what is considered as angry is not an angry response, it's a trauma response. Because I've been triggered. So a lot of times our spouse is triggering, and when you think about it, in a marriage, that's where we usually feel safe. And so typically that's where we tend to act out. You think about toddlers, people say, well, when he was with me, he was just fine. He didn't do none of that. Yeah, because he's not as safe with you. He knows he can throw a tantrum with mommy. And tomorrow, mommy's still going to love him. Right. And it's the same thing with our spouse. We will cut up and show out with our spouse. And a lot of times we give them the sludge. We give them the bottom part. Other people won't accept. So it's something we can do. We're not really aware, but we do need to come into an awareness. And a lot of times there is some reconciliation and some forgiveness that needs to happen, and some owning of our behaviors and our actions that we have to do for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. We were talking to Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling, Michelle Harris, brand new Reiki patient, and we've been talking about using Reiki as a form of healing, so to speak, for PTSD in any form. And please hit the replay if you're just now joining us, because we've been having a fascinating conversation about first who and what PTSD is, and of course, who can be affected by it, and how Reiki can help. If people want more information, Tina's information is on the screen. She is with No Shame Counseling and Reiki. And Tina, Michelle, when I asked Michelle about who should get Reiki, and she talked about a couple of different things, but also children, because you and I talked about children. As young as what age would you do a Reiki session with a child?
I would probably say about 2 or 3. As long as you have to sit still. So they got to be able to sit still. So I can do it on little kids. My sister brought her dog up here last week, and we were able to do Reiki on her dog, and she seen some improvement in her dog's behavior. So now I typically don't do just any dog now, y'all. We're not just finna beat the whole zoo. I ain't Dr. Doolittle. I do love dogs. They are special to me. But yeah, we can do little kids as long as they're willing to sit still. I do practice a lot on my niece and nephew. And so it's one of those things where if they can sit still for a little bit, yeah, they can have that done for sure. Even if it's just 5 or 6 minutes, they can have that done. Yeah. And it can be helpful.
Anything else you want to mention about your experience or about Reiki in general, Michelle?
I just think that on the other end of the spectrum, I just feel impressed to tell people it's never too late. Don't think that, oh, well, I'm old and set in my ways now. But no, there's always an opportunity to improve your quality of life.
Right.
It's all about life is all about experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're still here, you still have purpose.
Absolutely.
And you absolutely deserve to live your best healthy life, but you have to go and take it.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you are a counselor, and Michelle alluded to this, because if something does come up, you can handle it.
I got you.
You can talk it out.
I got you. Yeah, for sure. Now, I typically don't have my counseling clients as Reiki clients, but I do have some of my current counseling clients started off as Reiki clients. So that is something. And if not me, I can always refer you out to another great counselor that will suit your needs. That'll be a great fit for you. But yeah, whatever comes up, I got you.
All right. Tina Phillips, No Shame Counseling and Reiki. Michelle Harris with DHEC and Reiki patient. I don't know. Do you call it a patient? I guess you are a patient.
Yeah.
I'm a client. I'm a Reiki client.
Yeah. I don't know.
Reiki believer.
Reiki believer. Yes. She's not only the hair club user, she is a spokesperson.
That's right.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. And just the open, honest conversation about alternative forms of medicine. We got to keep our mind open to what works. For us. And it's different. We need to give it a chance. Thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Trey. Have a good one. Thanks, Michelle.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Sawyer, an entrepreneur and caregiver. Part of taking care of your health is knowing if you're at risk of type 2 diabetes. Prediabetes is serious and puts you at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. Up to 90% of South Carolinians who have it don't know they have it. Visit inittogethersc.org. Take an online test to find out your risk and join a diabetes prevention program. This message brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of SC.
It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Don't forget to go over to the It Together Facebook page and YouTube channel. Hit like and share and follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel and find out about all of the diabetes prevention programs, healthy wellness and food tips for you to have a great quality of life. You deserve it. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel and get to getting, y'all. Get yourself together so that you can have a great quality of life. Listen, as always, we leave you with a inspirational reading. I'm going to do some Jesus calling for you today. This says, trust me in the midst of a messy day. Are you having one of those? Or did you have one yesterday? Your inner calm, your peace in my presence don't need to be shaken by what's going on around you. Though you live in this world, your innermost being is rooted and grounded in eternity. When you start to feel stress, detach yourself from the disturbances around you. Instead of desperately striving to maintain order and control in this world, relax and remember that circumstances cannot touch my peace. This is God talking. Seek my face, and I will share my mind with you, opening your eyes to see things from my perspective. Don't let your heart be troubled, and don't be afraid. My grace My peace is sufficient for you today and every day. Man, that's some good word right there. I'm Tre Tailor. Thank you so much for watching Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Until the next time, I wish you peace and abundant blessings. Take care. God bless. Stay well. And don't forget to wear your mask. You still need to do that, especially when you're out and about, over your nose and under your chin. We'll see you soon.
Coping, find peace of mind to survive through whatever. Coping, learning the way that we thrive all together. Coping, finding out what's real. Coping, we can heal, we can heal, we can heal. Coping with stress, coping with strife, bringing hope for success, for improving our life. Coping beyond hoping to do more than survive. Ways to live a healthy life. Coping and promoting, learning what you can do. 6 ways to a better you. Coping, find peace of mind to survive